Welcome to The Neutral Ground. This week I'm joined by David Fishof. Now, to say that David has led an interesting life is quite an understatement. David has worked with some of the best musicians that the industry has to offer, producing for the Monkees, Ringo Starr of the Beatles, Roger Daltrey of The Who, and Alice Cooper, and many, many more. He was also a sports agent, representing some of the best athletes in New York, including one of my favorite New York Giants players of all time, Phil Simms. And David has quite a story to tell about the time he negotiated against the Yankees' legendary owner, George Steinbrenner, on behalf of his client, Lou Pinella. David also runs Rock Fantasy Camp, featuring musicians such as Joe Perry, Brian Wilson, Kiss, Slash, Def Leppard, and more. It's truly a life-changing experience for people, and this experience is actually documented in a truly wonderful movie that I recommend everyone see called Rock Camp. And trust me, you do not have to be a rock fan to enjoy this film. You just have to be the type of person who loves to see the human spirit being lifted. I hope your spirit is lifted when you finish listening to my conversation with David Fishof. David, welcome to The Neutral Ground. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me, and we're excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you, absolutely. And first, let me congratulate you on the movie Rock Camp. I think it's a fantastic film, and what I loved about it is it has so much to do with the human connection, with how we treat each other and how we think about our lives, how we motivate ourselves. And it's actually there that I'd like to begin. I want to ask you about something that you said in the film. You said, "I attribute my success to being in Synagogue at a young age with my father." Can you speak a little bit to that and just expand upon it a little?
So what I meant is that, being a child, all these gentlemen were basically these retired guys coming to synagogue, and they were like 65, 70, and I was 13. And I had to, I befriended these people, and I really learned how to talk to an adult at a young age, which later helped me talk to rock stars and to celebrities, because part of the problem that most people have most of the problem the celebrities have with folks is that people don't know how to talk to them. They either lie to them, they don't tell them the truth, they exaggerate, and the rock star and the athlete, they just want the truth. They just want to hear the good news or the bad news. Okay, you didn't sell tickets tonight, or you're not hitting, or people want the truth, and I think that rock stars in particular. They want to be told the truth and learn how to sit and talk to them. And I have to say that, most people don't know how to do that, but going to synagogue with my dad and learning to talk to older people and facing them, and it just really helped me. I really believe helped me sit down with a Ringo Starr, helped me sit down with a Roger Daltrey, and, just talk to them as normal human beings.
Yeah, and you if you're 13 and you're speaking with 50, 65-year-olds, especially at synagogue, you have to develop a sense of knowing what you're talking about, so you have to humbly learn and then learn how to engage others as well. So I got to imagine that even just the structuring around speaking about religion played a role here as well.
And I was just a fun young kid and not be intimidated and, lay it out straight. And, I learned that there was a guy named George Travis, and he was really one of my mentors. And he's still Bruce Springsteen's production manager. He does everything for Bruce. I hired him to do my Ringo tour. And I always admire the way he spoke to the artist. He sat him down. He said, "Okay, here's the opportunity. How big do you want your stage? What kind of production do you want? This is not going to work. What kind of plane do you want? Okay, it's not going to work. This will work." And they would just be honest with them, and that's really what they want to hear. Instead of the tour managers of today, I call them yes men. The artist says to them, "Hey, can we fly here? And I want to go here for dinner." And the tour manager says, sure, let's go. Then afterwards he sees the airline bill is $25,000 more. He said, well, I asked you, and that's what you said. You asked me, can we go? And I said, yes. I didn't tell you that it was going to cost you 25,000 more. Or, how many times I stayed at a hotel, and I remember one of my first tours, and we were staying at the Plaza Athénée in Paris. And we all walked out, and the crew and everything, and someone said to the artist, he said, what are we all doing here? I said, well, they asked you, where do you want to stay, and where do you want the crew to stay? And he said, the Plaza Athénée. So we booked the Plaza Athénée. Instead of the right thing the tour manager should have said is, okay, you want to stay at the Plaza Athénée and $2,500 a night, why don't you stay there, and the rest of us will stay at a Holiday Inn in Paris, which is just as nice, and it will cost $300. So you won't be paying for the crew guy to be living for $2,500 a night. You can't even. I remember staying in one of those rooms, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I don't know what the difference is. A $2,500 a night room is a $300 a night room here in London, at the Dorchester. So what I meant by that in the film was just learning to speak to people and telling them the truth, and and hearing and not telling people what they want to say, what they want to hear.
Do you think that the yes men who have come around so much, which do you think came first here? Kind of a chicken and egg question here. Is it that the entertainers might have wanted them and that fed it? Or do you think it was something about the culture of the representation, the yes men culture, that fed into the entertainers?
I think it's both. I think that a lot of entertainers, they just want to, people say, oh, you're great, you're great, you're great all day. And they tell the athletes how great they are, all day. And instead of telling them, you got to be truthful, telling them the truth. I mean, every day you read about another athlete, and, just finished reading this about this sad situation in Las Vegas with this ball player. I mean, and, and if his representation would have said to him, listen, stop drinking. You can't be going out at night at 3:00 in the morning and partying. And someone would have told him that instead of just taking his money, and, so people would be alive today. So I was always the type of, when I was an agent for my athletes or and my entertainers, I really told them the truth, and I'd say, hey, save your money. It's going to end. So stop spending like this. And I'm thank God with all my clients today. I talk to all my athletes. I put them in. I never did their investments, but I'd recommend them that they should be careful to save, because the day is going to end. And there are a lot of people in the entertainment business and the sports business who encourage their people, oh, spend money, it's okay. It keeps them working, especially so many entertainers. Oh, can I buy a house? Yeah, buy this house for $8 million. Yeah, buy this house. It's okay. With the reasoning behind it is now they're going to have to go keep working to pay it off. And I'm going to make more commissions, and I'm going to keep them on the road. And so that's really what I meant in the film, is just learning to be honest with these people. And here I was, a young guy, and I'm 20 years old, 21, and I'm dealing with professional athletes, and 25 dealing with rock stars, and 30 years old dealing with a Beatle, and and just learning how to talk to people and just be honest with them.
That's fantastic, and I appreciate the insight too. It's really interesting. Well, I have to admit, I'm one of those people who became huge Monkees fans because of the revival that you did, and I'm curious about, because I'm always interested in great ideas. I love people who have great ideas. I just find that so fascinating. What do you think people were hungry for with them so much at that particular time, and what did you see in them that made you think, I've got to do this right now?
First of all, I have to tell you, in all my years, in this past year promoting the film, the number one, more people ask me about the Monkees than anything. So it comes to show you what an effect they had on society. And I have to say it because it's upsetting that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because
it's a crime.
There are so many fans. It's a crime because, U2 does a concert at Dodger Stadium, and Davy Jones is in the audience. They know he's there. they call him up on stage to sing with them, and 52,000 people at Dodger Stadium are singing with Bono and Davy Jones, Daydream Believer. So what happened to the Monkees was I was doing these oldie shows, and I was packaging tours before they were doing Coachellos and all these packages, and I got the idea to put 4 bands on the road and Happy Together tour, and only perform hit songs. And I did the Association, the Turtles, and the Grassroots, and every year I would come out with a tour in '84, and then I did another one in '85. And I remember playing Albany. We played Albany a lot, and all upstate New York, Utica, and we toured the world. And I was in Kansas City one night at 2:00 in the morning watching the old Monkees TV show. And that's when I got the idea, you know what, let me get the Monkees. Let me see if I can get the Monkees. They'd be great for one of my oldie packages. So, because that was the only show my dad was a cantor, and my mom, they were strict with me, was watching TV. And they wouldn't let me watch wrestling. I mean, to this day, Bruno Sammartino was my idol. They would let me watch the wrestling matches. They thought I was too wild, but they let me watch the Monkees. That was the only show I was able to watch during the week. So I loved the Monkees. They resonated with me. They were just happy. They were fun, and I knew them more than I knew the Beatles. And so I really always a fan. And so I decided to do my information, and I tracked down Peter Tork. Everyone told me he lives in New York, so I invited him to come to one of my shows with the Turtles, and I put him on the stage, and he was jumping and so happy the whole night. And I said, "Do you think we can do this?" And he said, "I love this. Let's go. I said to him, "Well, we need Mickey and we need Davy." He said, "Well, they live in England." I said, "I'll fly you over there. Let's go over and meet them." Now, the 3 of them never really spoke for a long time, and no one had used the name the Monkees in 20 years. And so first I went over to see Davy, and I saw Mickey, and made them an offer to tour. And then I realized they didn't even own their name, the Monkees. So it was owned by Columbia Pictures. It was a TV show, and that logo was owned by Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider. They produced the TV show. They owned that logo. So I called the head of Columbia Pictures in Los Angeles, and he said, "David, we don't. The person who controls this is in New York." So I called the guy in New York, and he knew who I was, and I made a deal with him, and he said to me, "Why did you buy it from me? No one's ever asked me in 20 years for the name the Monkees." And I said, "Well, I'm doing these oldie shows, and I want to do it." And so now I put this tour together. I put the Gary Puckett and Union Gap, and I think the Grassroots, and the Hermans Hermits, and the Monkees. And that's going to be my tour over the summer. And I was doing these summer tours. And unbeknownst to me, I'm on the 7th floor of 1775 Broadway in Manhattan. And on the 8th and 9th floor is a new network called MTV. And I'm going up and down the elevator with Bob Pittman, Tom Freston, people running the network. And everybody knew me in New York as a sports agent. I represented 8 of the New York Giants. And, when the Giants won a game, I was, I'm in the elevator, people smile at me. When they lost, they're looking like, "Damn you," like, I'm just the agent, And I suppose what happened was they ended up betting the game they lost. So people love those Giants. They just got pissed off. And Giants had some tough years that year and in those years. And so I ran upstairs, and I knocked on Mr. Pittman's door, and I said, "Mr. Pittman, I'm David Fishof, and I'm doing the Monkees as a live tour. And I heard that you guys bought the episodes, and that you're going to do 24 hours of Monkees in the next few weeks, and you're going to keep showing the episodes." And he says, "Sit down, kid." And back then it was like a new company. He says, "You promote my new fledgling network MTV in all your ads, and I'll promote you on MTV on my television station." So I said, "Great." And I'm promoting it, and I'm putting it on my ads, and I'm planning to go on sale. And he shows 24 hours of Monkees, and then he announces my summer tour of the Monkees. I go on sale, and normally I sold 3,000 to 4,000 seats for these oldie shows, and that was it. And I go on sale in Chicago. I sold 28,000 tickets. Detroit sells 30,000 tickets. We play these amphitheaters, and there were 5,000 seats on the below the amphitheater, and then the whole lawn. Well, it turns out that every little girl came screaming and running home, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, the mothers would yell at them, "Where were you all night?" "Mommy, I was waiting for Monkee tickets." And the mother said, "Well, I want to go." And I didn't, "Mom, you know who the Monkees are?" I said, "Yeah, it's a 20-year-old man." He was incredible. It was just like, it was really unbelievable, Joe. It's even mind-boggling to today, because no one ever had, was able to see the success of something like that was just so hot. And they resonate with so many people. They make you happy. I was watching a video yesterday. I just get happy when you listen to the Monkees.
Yeah, I was just watching another episode where they were in prison or in jail like a couple of weeks ago, and I watched them on MTV. It was one of the few things we were allowed to watch on MTV at the time, right? Because there was a little bit of, parents were a little worried about what MTV was, but we could always watch the Monkees. And you hit the nail on the head with the idea that it resonated in a way with people. And there is a charm and there's a happiness in there that was very natural to all of them. They just did such a good job of just almost making you believe this is me and this is who we are. And if you buy into the band, you buy us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And everyone identified with their favorite one. And mine was Davy. And I guess my name's David. So I adored them. I miss Peter. Peter was a really tremendous human being. He had a lot of demons in him, as everyone does, but he had a heart and intelligence that was just amazing. Mickey's a very smart guy. He's a businessman, but he's got an amazing voice, and he was the lead singer of the band. And Davey was just had a heart of gold. He loved his fans, and he also had his issues. And what happened was they became so big, so fast overnight. They were the first childhood stars. And handling it was just really hard. It's not like the Beatles. We went to high school together, or any of these bands. We grew up together in a garage. One day they were in a room, and the next day they were huge stars.
Yeah, and to this day, I couldn't tell you a negative thing that I ever read about them. How you should let them in the Hall of Fame simply for that alone.
Listen,
how they handled themselves. They always came across as genuine, beautiful people.
Alice Cooper, he said to me one day, he says, we were partying up in Sunset Strip, and he says, we partied with drugs, it was back then. He says, I cannot even tell you what the Monkees were doing. He said, everyone thought we were the big drug guys. Those guys, they taught us, and it was just really funny because, no one ever looked at the Monkees that way, and, in the 80s, but they were amazing. They still bring happiness to people. Do I agree that they're touring now without Davey and calling it the Monkees? I think they were honest about it and say, hey, we're the Monkees, but we're just two of them. But if as long as they bring happiness and they bring smiles and hit songs, and you walk away from there and you feel good, that's to me what show business is about. I see Bob Dylan's going on tour now, and I gotta tell you, will he do any of his hits that you know him for? No, he'll do the whole new record, and you walk away saying, "Oh, Bob Dylan, he was awesome. Yeah, he was." You're lying. You came to hear "Blow It in the Wind," So when you went to see the Monkees, you got to see those hits.
Yeah. Every so often you'll hear, and it's unfortunate from the fan perspective always, you'll hear someone who will have a huge hit and they'll say, we regret ever recording it because then we just became that hit. The one that always comes to my mind is the band Extreme with More Than Words, which was such a huge, amazing, great song, great ballad.
Yeah, they toured for many ones, yeah.
Oh, is that right? Well, I got to tell you,
on Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, we did a tour where we opened for them.
Such a beautiful song. Yeah. And yet I still remember the interview where he said, we regret it. And I don't know where he stands now, to be fair. I want to be fair to him. This was a long time ago, and people always change, people evolve, that kind of a thing. But it just made me sad.
Todd Rundgren wouldn't do Hello, It's Me for many years. That was the song people came for. Or Levon Helm, may rest in peace. He would never do the song Down by Dixie, because Joan by, because Joan Baez recorded it, and he thought that everyone would think that it's Joan Baez's song, and it was really his song. And I said, well, people come to hear you sing it, So there are a lot of artists like that, and they have their reasoning, but I respect them, their talent.
Yeah, and it is theirs. And
Right.
I want to be fair in that we're all human. We all evolve at certain times and change in certain ways and this and that. But I love that song. No, that's one of the reasons why I was upset. I was like, oh, it's such a beautiful song.
Hey, I gotta tell you,
but I understand.
I did it with a lot of my artists over the years. I would tell them to their face, you got to record this. I remember having an argument with one of my artists. He wanted to do a new song right before intermission. I said, you can't do that. We won't sell any merchandise. You got to have the people walking out with a happy song that you're known for. No one cares about the new songs. I love the line that at a recent camp, a young man interviews Paul Stanley, and Paul Stanley, he says to Paul Stanley, you're going on this final tour. Are you going to do that cut from the third album that was what was the word he used? Not intricate. It was that. Oh, I forgot the name. The obscure cut on the third album of your Kiss record. And he said, no. He said that's why it's an obscure hit. People don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that, right? In that experience, actually.
Live concerts, you got to give the people the hits. That's it. When the minute you start pulling out a new song, everyone runs for the beer in the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, yeah, keeping with this too, with this film here, you say in the film that I want to kind of connect the sports and the music here a little bit, because again, something you said that I thought was fascinating was you kind of made the move from being a sports agent into music because you got bored. Now, I'm curious about that, because I want to ask you to go back to that time, that moment when you're sitting there and you're thinking, I'm going to make this move from sports agent to music. Is this a bigger leap of faith than you let on in the film? Is there a chance you fall?
No, because I was doing both the whole time. But what happened with the music business was that I had these successful tours with Dirty Dancing and with the Monkees and with Ringo, where I owned the merchandise. I owned the sponsorship, so the name of the company. I owned when the bookings, we sold a lot of tickets. I had a percentage of tickets. So whereas in sports, all it is show me the money, and, the team gets everything. And they didn't want to even promote these, artists, these athletes like they do today. They just wanted the teams to benefit. The NFL was never into promoting my football players. They just wanted it all for themselves. And it was very frustrating for me. Whereas in entertainment, if I got creative, I could make a lot of money. And the more creative you get, the more money you can make. And especially if it works. And it was working. Sports, it was bothering me the way the teams were treating these players. It was bothering me that, all your job really was like in the movie, show me the money. And it just wasn't creative enough for me. So it really had nothing to do with even the money. It has to do with passion. I'm a passion guy, as you can see. And if I don't have passion for something, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to stop, and I'll find something else to do. I believe enough in myself that if I can be passionate about something, eventually I'll make money. It might take longer than something else, but if your goal is to be the best that you can be, for example, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, my goal is to change people's lives, and that's really through the power of music. And it was also my goal was to find something I could do where I don't have to travel and see Chicago and Detroit and in Cleveland, and it's one thing when you're a rock star and you're going from city to city and you have fans and they're screaming about you, but when you're in management, you're sitting backstage and you're bored, and then on to the next show and then on the next show. Yes, it's your business. You have to be in Detroit. When your stars are in Detroit, you have to be in Detroit because they want you there. So I just got bored with traveling, and I saw every shopping mall in the country, and I just got bored, and that's why I really went to do the rock camp. I wanted to find a business that I can be involved in, change lives, and would not make as much money. I agree. It's very hard to make money in that business, but I could also be home with a family. and I'd be home with kids. And I have children, and my first oldest kids, they saw me a lot on the road. And I was talking to a manager the other day, and we were saying that even if we were around, we weren't around because my kid would ask me a question to my face, and I would say yeah, 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 and I'd be worried that one of my athletes was calling me or one of my stars was in Detroit performing, and I had to answer his question. He's going to call me right back, and I couldn't really be attuned to my family. Now, last night, my daughter said, "Dad, can you help me out with some homework?" And I said, "Yeah, bring it in. Let's do it, and I'll help you out." And so I just found I had to change my life.
Yeah. It was interesting to me too in the film that at one point you were kind of thrown aback by Ringo Starr saying, "Hey, where are you going? We want you to travel with us. We want you to
Yeah.
be on tour." And that made me think, why was that so important to them? Because clearly for you, you almost thought, why?
Why?
What exactly am I going to do for you or with you? But why do you think at the time that seemed to be so important to these stars that you had to be there with them?
Well, in 1986, when I was doing the Monkees, I was rehearsing them up at the Concord Hotel in the Catskills, and I got to meet Bill Graham. The late Bill Graham was a promoter, famous promoter, Fillmore East, Fillmore West, and he was he died in a helicopter crash, but he was like the number one promoter in the world. And I'll never forget, I sat down with him one night and I said, "Bill, what do you really do for a living?" And he said, "I'm the Rolling Stones tour manager." I said, "What do you mean? You're Bill Graham, you're a promoter. What do you mean you're the Rolling Stones?" He says, "Well, I got to go on the road with the Stones. Who else is going to tell Mick Jagger to get the F on the bus?" And I realized at that time that when you represent a big star, you need to be on the road with them. Bob Dylan's manager is on the road with him. Springsteen's manager is on the road with them. Because if you have a show in Detroit, your business is in Detroit that night. If you have a show in Denver, your business is in Denver, and you have to be there with your business. So, I didn't realize it. I never used to go on the tours. I used to send the tour managers. I'd show up to like Chicago for a night and go back home, and I would go to LA, the good cities, but I really had to be on the road, and Ringo had asked me if I was going to be on the road with him, and I said yes, but that was agent talk. I never really thought I was going to ever have to go on the road. And then I went on the road and my life changed, I had to grow up. You go on the road for 4 months and, all of a sudden, that's a whole different thing. Being around these artists who you're 10 years younger than them. So and I'm not a bar guy. I don't sit at the bar, either does Ringo but I'm not a partier. Never was. And so it was a whole lifestyle that I had to change. And I learned how to play cards. Clarence Clemens taught me a lot. I learned a lot. And I have to tell you that while you see that great joke they played on me in the film, I got to tell you, I grew up that year. I learned more from these people. I mean, Joe Walsh, he's a brain. His intelligence is high above everybody else's. He really taught me a lot. Levon Helm. I learned a lot from these people because, listen, these people have one notch above most people in the way of their talent. They had to endure a lot to get to become who they are, whether it was a Beatle, whether it was a Joe Walsh, whether it was a Dr. John. And you can learn a lot from them. The resilience, you learn about their passion. And the passion to me is really what, how many musicians are there out there who have to make a choice in life to go find a job after high school and college? And then the ones who really took a chance, who are willing to tour, who are willing to play a dive just to make it because they had such belief in their music, belief in their career. And, at rock camp, what a lot of these people, they say to me after they leave camp, I say, you're disappointed that you're going to go home to your regular job. You spend 4 days with the biggest stars, and now you have to go. And I remember one lady saying to me, "David, I learned I changed my life. I stopped being a lawyer. I write books. I'm the number one fiction writer for Amazon. I wrote 14." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I left your camp, and I met Meatloaf, and I met these incredible stars, and I said, I'm going to live with the passion that they have. I'm going to take a chance on my life like they did, and their belief in themselves to become successful. And she went on to become a huge successful writer. So you can learn a lot from these stars. I wrote a book a few years back called Rock Your Business, everything that you can learn from rock stars. And if you look at today's rock stars, Aerosmith, they're still a brand. The Beatles, still a brand. Kiss, still a brand. I mean, how many brands around 50, 60 years ago, that how many companies aren't around? They weren't able to move with the times. And whereas music has been able to move with the times, and these artists have, and they're selling out arenas, and they're huge around the world. I mean, Kiss can sell out stadiums in South America, and Aerosmith, when they go on tour, they make more money than they've ever made. McCartney too. So keeping their brand was a lot of work and a lot of intellectual stuff from their minds and the people that are around them.
What really resonates with me too about what you're saying is I think we make a mistake today sometimes in that if we want to become a great basketball player, oftentimes we'll study great basketball players. Okay. But truly greats, what they study is the art of being great. They won't just limit it to just their own field that they want to be great in. They want to know, what does it take to be great? And that's one of the reasons why I just love speaking to people who are great at things, anything, because I find it to be just so fascinating, the story behind what it took to get there. And you mentioned your campers and what they come away with it, and that kind of reminds me of the story of Tammy in the movie. And Tammy talks about something that I was just discussing in my classroom with my college students last week, which was this idea of, she said she'll go to the camp and she'll be in a room with, 4 different people, all of whom want to play a different song. And it's a song that she doesn't even know. And one of the counselors will just look at her and just say, "Wing it." And what made me laugh about that so hard is having the same conversation in my classroom with the students, giving them a project saying, you need to do this. You need to work together to come to this ending result. And my line to them is always, your job is to impose order on chaos. Now go. And sometimes they'll look at me and they'll say, yeah, but what about this? And I'll say, no. Go. Figure it out. And I love how the movie shows that if you can walk into a situation and say, hey, let's work together and figure this out, you can come away with something truly wonderful like they do.
It is amazing. And I think I was thinking just now about negotiating a sports contract. You don't learn that. You just do it. You go in and you meet George Steinbrenner and you negotiate against him, and you walk in with an attitude that, I'm representing Lou Pinella here, and I got three points of information before negotiation. Number one, information, timing, and power. You need those 3. Number one, information. I know the Yankees needed Lou, and he was a great ball player. And I had found out that although Steinbrenner said to me no one else is going to sign him, was because he got up at the owners' meeting and said, hey, don't sign any of my players, because if you do, and you offer him $10, I'll offer him $12. So I had that information. Timing, I knew George was in a rush to make a deal, because if he didn't make a deal with me, he would have lost Lou to free agency. And 3 is power. Power is in the mind. If you think you have it, you have it. If you don't think you have it, you don't have it. And that to me is a big one. It's a confidence that people lack. And it's what I love about, confidence. And again, going back to passion, it's only something that you can pick up and really learn. And it's you get it. And little successes at a time. But I love it, even with my kids, give them wings and let them fly. And you know what? Let them make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. But if they don't go out there and take a shot, if they don't get up there to take a hit, they'll never be able to hit it, get up to that plate, they'll never take a hit. So I'm a big believer in that. And it's great what you tell your students. And instead of, feeding them, let them figure it out. You can figure this thing out. You got to fumble, right? What I want to say about the film is that, to me, what I love most about the film that I'm hoping will resonate with people is that, okay, these people took a chance to play music. And now, but it wasn't really meant for them. It was meant for people who are walking around with an idea. I have this app. I have this idea to a concept, an idea, and I'm afraid to do it. At any age, you hear these people at 40, 50, they're taking a chance. You can do this with anything you want in life. You should be able to take a chance and go do it. So not just a musician, anyone who has an idea. You want to do a podcast? Do your podcast. You're hoping one day someone's going to buy it and pay millions of dollars. You got to do it. You got to get to the plate and do it.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask, because you brought it up, what was it like in the room with George Steinbrenner?
So, it definitely was he's very intimidating. I write about him in my book. My first book, I wrote a book on negotiations, putting it on the line. And I tell the story about me walking into his office, and, the desk was so long. He was sitting at one end. I was sitting at the other end. And, we were about a half a mile apart. And I just said, excuse me, I'm going to come closer. And I went to sit up right up. I just took myself up, because I walked in there. So what are you here to talk about? He knew what I was here to talk about. And I flew to Florida. And I walked right up to sit right next to him. And I said, let's discuss, Lou's contract. And he said, well, I gave you an offer and that's it. I said, and you could be a free agent if you don't like it. Well, I had made calls to every general manager in baseball for the previous 2 days and asking them, would you be interested in Lou Pinella? Would you be interested in Lou Pinella? I had a right to do that as an agent during that time. George had an exclusive amount of time to negotiate with me. Otherwise, he would have lost Lou to free agency. And every general manager said, man, I'd love a Lou Pinella. I'd love him. I said, but I'm afraid to sign him because, George can outbid me. And so I knew then that I had more information than he knew I had. And the information was that there was no way that Lou was really a free agent. And I turned to him and I said to him, well, we want to discuss, a deal. And he said, well, like I said, I made you an offer. And I said, you're a free agent if you don't like it. And I said, no, we're not. We're really not free agents, George. You told everybody at the owners meeting that they better not sign your clients, whether it was Ron Guidry, it was Bobby Mercer. I said, you said don't sign your players because I'm gonna double the, So all of a sudden, I caught him. I caught him in a lie, really. And then we actually sat down and negotiated a deal. And I'll never forget, he said, okay, you got it on one condition, that if he gains weight, there was a weight clause. I'm going to put a weight clause in there. And later, you can Google it. There's a whole story about the weight clause in the middle of the season. But he loved Lou. And I'll tell you one thing about George. I mean, no matter what you want to say about George Steinbrenner, you could tell all he wanted to do was win. Yeah. He would win. He paid those players because he thought that if he paid them, he could win. And that's all he wanted to do was win, 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 win. So I admired him.
Yeah, right. Oftentimes someone like that, it's pretty easy to admire their focus, right? Their drive to say, look, I have one goal and I'm not going to compromise that goal. And there are things you can learn from people like that as well.
Yeah, successful people. Yeah, they're driven. Now, the question is, why are they driven? Okay, how are they driven? And we can go deep into that. Many people are driven from childhoods, they came from poor childhoods and they wanted to be successful. I came from a wonderful childhood, but, we weren't privileged at all. And I wanted things in life and I had goals. And so I aspired to, make more money than my dad and become more successful. I'm very lucky because my kids are really are getting more successful than me. I have a daughter, Alana Molstein, who's a nutritionist for a company called Beachbody, and she's just killing it. She's got 1.5 million people on TikTok. I have a son-in-law who's a rabbi, a modern Orthodox rabbi, who's writing books, and he's got a huge synagogue. And my son Josh is now heavily in the market. And I'm just watching these kids, and all you pray is that your kids become more successful than you. And but the drive that that you can give your kids, or that we my dad was a Holocaust survivor, so I'm driven by Hitler's hurting my whole family and killing a lot of the family, and saying, I'm going to become successful, and I can show you that, you didn't kill, that I could come here, represent a Beatle, represent a football player. And so, we all have something that drives us, and drive is a big thing.
Absolutely. And you were driven to start the rock fantasy camp, and then in 1997, correct?
Right.
And you say in the film, one kind of funny part, you say it was a financial disaster that year. Now, how close were you? How close were you to just shutting it down at that point? And what kept you going then?
Well, that's a great question, because normally on any business, you would shut it down. And I remember calling Roger Daltrey. He's really been a great supporter of the camp, and he loves it because it gives other musicians jobs. He's seen actual people go through life-changing experiences. And I said, Roger, I just can't keep this thing going. He said, well, end it. Just end it. Just stop it, end it. And everyone told me to end it. And what kept me going was I'd open up my email every day, and someone would say, hey, my life's been changed. I got to hang out with Roger Daltrey. Not only hang out, but jam with him, or Joe Perry, or and then one guy wrote an email to me, and that really changed my life. And that's Scott Keller in the film. He writes to me. He's the head of one of the big heads of McKinsey. He says, I had the greatest experience of my life. My son and I bonded like never before, and it was incredible. And I was really at the wit's end. And I called them up and I said, well, thanks for the email. I see you're with the biggest consulting company in the world. Can I take you to lunch and get some advice? Because I'm really having issues I'm running 2 camps. I'm running a camp here where everybody's having the greatest time, and the rock stars are loving it. They're meeting these amazing people, and I'm just losing my shirt. And he said to me, he asked me a few questions, called me back 20 minutes later. He says, I'm putting together 6 of my smartest people at McKinsey, and we're going to take you to dinner, and we're going to hear what your issues are, and we're going to give you some advice. And it's my gift. I want you to keep this thing going, because I know you can change people's lives. So I went to dinner with these 6 people. I remember inviting a friend of mine to come to write down everything they say, because I probably wouldn't be able to digest it so fast. I didn't want to bring a tape recorder. And so he started off dinner by introducing me to all these people, and they were all McKinsey people, and they're all McKinsey graduates. So I had a young lady there who was the head of Ticketmaster. I had someone else whose father worked at McKinsey, but the son came, and he had a band called They Are Giants. And all these different people came. And he said, David, you have 10 minutes to speak to us. That's hard for me, 10 minutes, but tell us what the issues are. And then we're going to ask you questions for 10 minutes. And then basically you'll shut up and we'll tell you what we think you should be doing to turn this business around. And I did that. And they said, can we go through your books? I said, please go through my books. Everything's open. Find out what the issues are. And they came back to me about 2 weeks later, and they said, David, if you're making $10, you're spending 12, spend 9. It's just something very simple, and it's very McKinsey-esque. I was told that they really, keep $1 for yourself. And they really showed me. They went through my books. They found a lot of stuff that was wrong, and they really helped me put the business. And that Scott Keller is just a genius. And as you can see in the film, how amazing he is as a father, as a human being, and dedicated to his son. And he really changed my life too.
Yeah, there's this beautiful kind of father-son motif in there in the film, and it actually reminded me of speaking with my father about baseball statistics. The way that Scott speaks to his son about, this band toured at this date and with this, lead singer and with this guitarist. I was thinking back to talking about, playing third base for the Mets in 1986 and this and that with my father. And even in a previous interview, I was speaking with DC Glenn from Tag Team, and he was mentioning, he did the famous Geico commercial in 2020 where they sing their Scoop There It Is song, everybody's so happy. And he said to me, he went in there and he attached himself to the commercial because he was having memories of making ice cream with his father. And he said, for some reason, he said he thinks that what people love about that commercial so much is coming through from his relationship with those memories with his father. And I just thought, this is, again, kind of speaks to that, the humanity that's in the film, that you don't have to be a fan of rock per se, or heavy metal, or
Right.
any of that. You can just watch this as a good movie about learning how we can come together as a people to do great things and to enjoy connections that sometimes we lose rather easily today.
This past summer, I opened the film in Jerusalem at the film festival, and I had an audience of people that were there. Half of them knew who the bands were, and the other half didn't know who the bands were. And a lot of people came because they were friends of mine or they were friends of somebody. And the people didn't know the bands. They came to me afterwards and said, listen, this film is not about rock and roll. This film is about people, exactly how you said it. And that was the most exciting thing for me. That's why I really want people to see the film, because it really shows about the human connection, about what people, you can learn so much in that film about life. And yeah, I'm so glad you pointed out, because you don't have to be a music fan to really enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think this is a good question to end with here too, is what really moved me toward the end of the film is you are clearly present when these rock, people who come to the camp, these campgoers, when they come in, and more than a few of them come up to you like they've known you for 20 years, and they're giving you a hug and they're giving you a kiss on the cheek and they're saying, it's great to see you, David. And you know what? It's easy to overlook this. But being that you run this, you don't have to be there. Of course, you could have somebody go and greet them. And what I wanted to ask you was, why is it so important for you to be seen and involved so much in this?
So what's interesting is I didn't want to be in the film. That I have to tell you right away. It wasn't about, because I kept fighting with Doug Blush and Jeff Rowe, and it said, keep me out of it. It's about the campers and it's about the rock stars. And I'll tell you why, because I learned that from Ringo. Every time I go to Ringo with an interview, he'd say to me, well, give it to this rock star, give it to that rock star. And I learned a lot from him, because it was always about, the mentality of being in a band is pushing everybody else. And I love that he did that. And I wanted to do the same thing. And they came back to me and said, you have to be in it, you have to be in it. So I'll be in it on a couple of conditions. You got to really show who I am, the real me, and my religious upbringing, my dad, to me, that's really what's important. And so why is it important? The reason it's important for me is I love to see these people go from day one to day 4. And I love to see how their lives change, because that's what it is. I can't play an instrument. I try to play the guitar. As you see in the film, I try to play the bass. I'm terrible. But if you can give this connection to people, if you can change their lives, if you can give, and giving is better than receiving, it is fun. It is fun. And I get to make new friends, and I've made some amazing friends. And to see these people, you give them a life-changing experience, nothing like it. And again, they write to me all the time, and they call, and I'm running my business better, David, now. And, my wife says I don't have road rage anymore. My wife says I'm happy. I just did this album. I did these songs. It is amazing what you can give people. And I'm very lucky at this age of my life and this career that I have that ability to take everything that I've learned in the music business and give it back to people that really, really, really appreciate it. So that's,
I can't stress enough. Just see the film if you just want to make to kind of rebuild connections a little bit with humanity, what it means, because so much of entertainment today as well is about creating drama and stress, and this is just like a palate cleanser.
Palate cleanser,
to
right?
go in
That's a great way to say
and
it.
really, I mean, it really is in the sense of, and people might think I'm being hyperbolic or something, but I'm really not. Sometimes you need to be reminded that we have a lot of beautiful ways that we can connect with each other to create great things. And this movie reminded me of that.
And you see these rock stars who, you never look at them that way. I mean, that's why people are blown away. And Jimmy Fallon said, "I love this film," and he also, he said to Roger Daltrey, he said, "I love the reality that these people are real and honest." And the film's available. They go to our website, rockcamp.com. The film's on Apple. They can see it on Apple or Amazon. You can see it on Amazon Prime, or go to rockcampthemovie.com and you see all the different outlets. And thank you very much. I do a lot of interviews, and most of the people talk about the rock stars, and I love that you got deep into it, because that's really what it is for me. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
I think it comes across. I think you come across genuine as well, that you really do love it for the people, for the bonds. I think it's a wonderful movie. And David, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate Joe. Thanks for having me, and I'll really look forward to when I get to Albany, maybe in the summer, we will connect.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with David Fishof, a truly remarkable individual. And definitely check out the film Rock Camp. It will remind you that there is still much good in the world. If you haven't yet done so, hit the subscribe button, click the thumbs up, and leave a kind comment. That's the best way to support my endeavor to bring civility back to discourse. With every click, comment, and video that you watch, you bring our message in front of new eyes that might really need a bit more connection with the human spirit. Until next time, try to keep one foot firmly planted on the neutral ground. And have a great day.